The routine of war is becoming all too familiar in Tel Aviv. First, air raid sirens ring out, people leaving the streets to find shelter. And then come the Iranian missiles, as a battle is waged in the skies between Israel's defense systems and a barrage of ballistics. But overnight, some of the missiles Iran fired appear to have made it through. In the city of Petah Tikva, a residential building was hit, killing 4 people. The young and the old alike caught up in this conflict.
This is the face of the Iranian terror regime. While we target military and nuclear capabilities intended to destroy the state of Israel, they fire at population centres with the aim of harming civilians.
But Israel now claims to have won aerial control of the skies over Tehran. It released these images, which it says shows strikes on surface-to-air missiles and the shooting down of drones. Iran's health ministry reports that at least 224 people have been killed in Israeli attacks since Friday, with emergency services left clearing through the rubble to find survivors. Iran says Israel has put regional and global peace under unprecedented threat. And this conflict has implications for the world. Iran is now reportedly preparing to leave a non-proliferation treaty aimed at limiting the spread of nuclear weapons. Another signal of the dangers posed by any escalation. Fred Dimbleby, ITV News.
Let's get the latest from our international editor, Emma Murphy, who is across the border from Iran in northern Iraq, and our correspondent, Stacey Foster, who is in Washington this lunchtime. Emma, the attacks are continuing. What's the key to calming tensions right now?
Well, isn't that the question that's being pondered in capitals all around the world? In terms of the simple answer, what is the key? Potentially it's Donald Trump, although it's very difficult to know how committed he is to actually taking on that role. The reality is that President Trump, in his role as the US president, is the most influential person when it comes to Israel. He's the one that potentially has the greatest level of leverage, although it's by no means absolutely guaranteed that he definitely does, and that's something that will be playing in the backs of the minds of many world leaders. Of course, he can bring that leverage to bear potentially on Israel to try and get them to stop the campaign against Iran that they've been waging for the past days, whilst at the same time trying to encourage Iran to come back to the negotiating table, the table that they were at the point that Israel began striking their territory. Now, President Trump continues to say that he does believe there is a path to peace through the negotiating table. The Iranians today, certainly some of the government officials, are saying that they will not go back to negotiations even if Israel stops, and that's something that will cause concern. But of course, everything that's being said is being said for a reason, and that's for each country's dominance. That's also to try and force other people's hands. It's very hard to read exactly what people genuinely mean, because there are the public statements and the private statements, what's said and the innuendo behind it.
Indeed. Emma, thank you very much. To Stacey in Washington now, and picking up on some of what Emma was saying, calls from Iran for the US to condemn the Israeli attacks if nuclear negotiations are to continue, as Iran threatens to pull out of this non-proliferation treaty, the nuclear treaty. All eyes really are on President Trump.
Absolutely. And speaking last night ahead of his trip to Canada to meet other world leaders, President Trump was explicitly asked what is his plan to de-escalate the situation in the Middle East. He said that he was hopeful of a deal. He said sometimes they have to fight it out. We'll see what happens. But he said there was a good chance of a deal. He was also asked whether or not he had asked Israel explicitly to pause airstrikes into Iran. He said he wouldn't say that. He did confirm that the US continues to support Israel's defences. But earlier in the day yesterday, speaking to ABC, the president said that while the US was not involved in strikes at the moment, he said it was possible they could. So President Trump's next move in this is critical. Some of the US networks are also reporting that the president rejected a plan by Israel to kill Iran's supreme leader. The situation here is now precarious and far from bringing Iran back around the negotiating table, as Emma was just saying. All of this seems to make a nuclear deal with Iran almost impossible to achieve now.
Stacey Foster in Washington there. Thank you very much. Let's take you live now to that build up to the G7 summit in Banff in Canada and join our political editor Robert Peston. This conflict will likely dominate the talks there.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. We've got the leaders of the world's most powerful democracies here in the state of Alberta in Canada, and they had been planning to make their priorities bringing peace to Ukraine and managing the economic cost of President Trump's tariffs, but that has, probably an inappropriate phrase, been blown out of the water by the conflict between Israel and Iran. We saw last night when the Prime Minister had a bilateral conversation with the Prime Minister of Italy, Giorgia Meloni, that trying to forge a collective agreement to use that phrase, de-escalate this conflict is absolutely at the top of the agenda. And the reason for that is obviously partly the cost in lives, and that's obviously the thing that worries most of us, but also the potential damaging impact to our prosperity. Oil prices have not risen again today yet, but they have surged about 10% over the past week, and that will have an impact on inflation and on the cost of living. So Keir Starmer is here, British Prime Minister, trying to be a sort of broker, because he is in an unusual position among these world leaders of having a pretty constructive relationship both with President Trump and with the leaders of Europe and Japan. So the big question is whether he can bridge that really significant gap between the two camps. On the one hand, European leaders really want essentially a ceasefire now. Trump, on the other hand, as you've just heard, has actually been talking about how the bombing may well be, in his view, in the global interest. And there's here there is genuine anxiety that America will come in alongside Israel in these attacks on Iran. So huge stakes at this G7 summit.